Hello YouTube and welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about the real costs of booking a DJ. It's quite a grey area and I often get messages about how much do I offer, how do I contact an artist. So today I'm going to break it down as best I can from the perspective of an artist myself and also someone who's booked DJs for 8 years now. Yumi's been going for. So I've heard many tales and know the ins and outs of what goes on. So first thing is first, you decide to book a DJ. It's good to have a date and a venue secured before contacting artists, or you're likely to either be ignored or not taken seriously, and you can't really come up with an agreement unless you've got a solid venue. So to find an artist's email, you can go to Instagram, Resident Advisor, SoundCloud, you'll find it somewhere. And if it's a smaller artist, just DM them, I'm sure they'll reply. Be realistic. If you're DMing Marco Carola, he's not going to reply with his email. And to book these big artists, you really need to have proof that you have been doing it a long time, etc. And it's hard to pull the big boys. But we'll focus this on, your general booking of artists who aren't all the way up there, because that's probably who it's helpful for. Because I can imagine if you're booking these huge artists, you don't need my advice anyway. So once you've got their email, you need to send over to the agent your proposed plans. Ideally have a date and a venue. They'll often then tell you if they're available or not. From there, they will send you an offer sheet. And in the offer sheet, you'll have to fill in all the usual stuff. So capacity of the venue, maybe ticket price, who else is playing. And then the agent can then say, yes, it's suitable. What's your offer? Or they may say, no, this isn't right. Sorry. And they may give you a reason. If they don't give you a reason, just ask. Always ask. So once they say, have you got an offer for me, a financial offer? I would be realistic. You need to think about how many tickets can they sell for you and all this kind of stuff. It's a bit of a weird one because if you're a new promoter, you may get charged a bit more because agents and the artists will have other options which could be better than yours. So it's a bit of a weird one, the supply and demand, because the artist can, a Saturday night in the middle of December, which is a really busy time, if they take a gig with a small promoter, they may miss out on a gig which is really, really good in a huge venue or something like that, or something which can boost their profile more. So it's a bit of a weird one. I think typically, if you're new starting out, you're going to have to pay a bit more, and the more credible you get and the more relationships you build, the better price you can get. So I would just try and be sensible with what you offer. Offer a bit lower than your maybe top price. Just use some common sense, just like you're going to buy anything. Maybe just undershoot by 20%. I know they may bump you up. And if you go too low, you will get ignored. So just be vigilant there as well. And then once you've sent the offer over, there'll be different terms. You may want to pay an all-in price. So that includes your travel, accommodation, booking fee, etc., which we'll talk about after. Or you may get a plus price where it's the DJ fee plus booking fee plus flights plus accommodation. You may get a landed fee where the travel comes out of the artist fee. There's different things, but I would always just ask the agent, does this include this? Does it include that? Do we pay for that? Do not be shy. People will always be understanding. Do not be afraid to ask questions, because if you get down to 1 week from the event, you found out that you were meant to pay for the travel and you've not budgeted it, or the flights are dead expensive, etc., you can get yourself a bit of a mess. So that brings us on to travel. Firstly, travel could be your train, flights, etc. It really depends where you're bringing the artist from. Typically, you will pay for this main bit of travel, then the ground transport on the other end. Ground transport means from the airport to the hotel or to the restaurant or to the club, depending what time the flight is. Ground transport can be done by yourself, depending on the size of the artist. We'll have different requirements. We've had artists before and they've said they want this certain car. I would say in the last few years, we've not encountered that at all. We do have a driver that does our pickups for us, so it's quite a nice experience for artists anyway, but we don't really get that anymore where it's got to be this, got to be that. But always be wary that you want to set a good impression as soon as the artist comes off the flight or train. You want to feel comfortable and safe and all that kind of stuff. So it's always a good idea to go and pick the artist up yourself if you can, because you can build a relationship with them. But if not, come up with an alternative which is comfortable for them and sets a good tone the minute they set off the plane, set off the train and all that stuff. So when it comes to flights and trains, obviously different classes. Business class is a long haul flight. You've got first class, you've got economy, and then on short stuff on trains, you've got first, standard, and like your EasyJets, etc. You've got extra legroom. This will all be dependent on the artist. Again, just clarify with them. If an artist costs £1,000 a book, it's unlikely they're going to be able to say, I want business class, because that would be more than the booking fee. They may want extra legroom. You've also got to bear in mind that if they're bringing vinyl, they have to pay for extra carry-on. If it's a longer gig where they're playing, for 2 weeks on tour somewhere, they may have big suitcases. But in general, you've just got to cover that main thing. And then once they get off the plane, the ground transport, so pick them up, take them to the hotel, either with a driver or yourself. One thing you shouldn't have to worry about is how the artist gets to the airport or train the other side. So you've got two things here. Either they're coming from home, so that's just their job to get there. I've never heard of artists demanding that to be covered. But what you have got is if they're playing a night before, so in a different city or country, that promoter should then take them from that gig to the airport or train station. So this brings me on to the point of flight shares. If an artist is playing somewhere the night before, it will be their job or the promoter's job to bring them to the airport. Then you can negotiate to pay half the flight or train from the location before. It's worth asking because it will save you some pennies. And it's quite a common thing if a DJ is playing 2 or 3 times in a weekend, the cost will be split between the different promoters and the agent can either put you in communication or they'll look after it themselves. So accommodation is the next thing. This is what you will either have to pay for or they'll agree that they pay for it, but more often than not, you will have to cover the accommodation. I would say most artists' minimum requirement is going to be 4-star. A lot of agents will ask you to send over in advance where they'll be staying. A wise man once said to me, an artist should never have to stay somewhere which isn't as comfortable as their own home. So in general, I think just be wary that you want to feel clean, safe, etc. So paying a slight premium on somewhere better will improve their experience a lot. You'll also likely have to include breakfast for the artist the next morning. A lot of hotels will have like a bed and breakfast option. This is quite normal as they will have the breakfast and then get picked up and go to the airport. And continuing on from food, you are likely going to take an artist out for dinner. If you don't, then you're missing out on an opportunity to really connect with them. A lot of the great relationships that I've built have been from you and me, and it's been from hanging out beforehand, going for some food, and there is a special bond I think you get in general when sharing food and that moment with people. And if the artist does not want to come for dinner, you may have to give them a buyout so they go and do their own thing. This is also something which should be on the contract and should be clear in advance. So now we've covered hotels, transport, the booking fee, and also the artist fee. This brings us to the stuff on the night and the rider. You've got 2 types of riders, the hospitality rider and also the tech rider. The hospitality rider may include drinks. It could include some specific foods. I've had before people want things like cold towels, a fan when they're playing. Yeah, it really depends on the person. But like I've said, the bigger the artist, they may have more requirements and you want them to feel welcome. So don't skip this part. I've been asking for coconut water the last few times and it was there. And straight away I'm like, they actually listen, they care, and it makes the experience a lot better. Then you've got your tech requirements. So depending on who it is, say it was a live set, for example, you may need to rent something. Some DJs have specific monitors they may want. It's probably not that common, but obviously the bigger the artist, they want everything right. They might want the Technics in a certain way. Well, I want the Technics on the inside, CDJs on the outside. I want a certain mixer. I'm actually debating going to the Pioneer mixer, but it again depends on the person, but you are going to have to make sure it's set up properly. There is nothing worse than getting to a gig and they've either not listened, they've not checked it set up properly. There is no drinks there. So the hospitality and the tech stuff is super important and you'll be asked to confirm in advance if you've done it. So depending on where you're based, you may have to pay for some kind of visa. It's not something that I've had to do as a touring artist much. Australia, I had to get one. For you and me, we have had to pay for something, I think it's called a COS, C-O-S. So that's another cost on top. But just need to check wherever you're from. I'm sure you'll be made aware by the agent. So once all this is done and the artist is on their way, well, the week in advance of an artist coming, it's likely you will have to send over an itinerary. This will confirm the travel, the pickup, the hotel, the riders, making sure you've seen everything and making sure everything is in line for them to come and perform. Once this is all done, the artist will come, they will play, and I would always advise trying to build a relationship up, making sure they have a good time, and who knows, this is how great things start. If you've got any questions on any of this, please pop them below. Hopefully it's been helpful and useful. If there's any other grey areas within the music industry you'd like me to talk about, please just ask because it makes it easy for me with more content ideas. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Thank you for watching. Peace.